2024 has been one hell of a year for movies so far, and you know what else? It's been a great year for weirdness at the movies too, whether on the big screen or at home on streaming. Though there's still half of the year to go, the first 6 months of 2024 served up a healthy helping of cinematic weirdness. So with that being said, I'm Jem from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 of the biggest WTF moments from 2024 movies so far. Number 10. John Cena does Britney in Ricky Stenicki. God bless Ricky Stenicki for being such a shameless throwback to the delightfully dumb and unrelentingly raunchy R-rated comedies of decades past, and its easy MVP is none other than Mr. John Cena. Cena plays Rock Hard Rod, an actor and impersonator who sings sexual parodies of hit songs. This is demonstrated through a gut-bustingly hilarious montage of Cena dressing up and performing as Alice Cooper, Billy Idol, Peter Frampton, and finally, Britney frickin' Spears. Cena commits fully to the bit, decked out in Britney's iconic outfit from her Baby One More Time music video as he licks booze off a cardboard box on the ground, because why the hell not? The entire movie is driven forward by Cena's unwavering willingness to go all out for our entertainment, and it never gets better than seeing the former WWE superstar in a skirt, thigh highs, and pigtails. Number 9. Jesse Plemons' terrifying cameo in Civil War. Jesse Plemons shows up for about 10 minutes in Alex Garland's political thriller Civil War and basically steals the whole darn movie away from the rest of the cast. Plemons plays the unnamed leader of a uniformed army who the central journalist end up stumbling across, all while said army are busy burying civilians in a mass grave. A tense standoff ensures a journo Joel tries to reason with the army before Plemons' character coldly shoots one of their group, an Asian man dead. He then interrogates the remaining journalists about where they hail from in the US and then executes the other Asian member of the group. It's bone-chillingly nauseating to watch, a racist army picking off whoever it doesn't like the look of, the only relief from which comes when the remaining reporters are rescued by Sammy, played by Stephen McKinley Henderson. It's all the more impressive a performance from Plemons, given that he was a last-minute replacement for another actor who had become unavailable, giving him mere days to prepare for the pivotal scene. Number 8. All the ADR in Madame Web. You could actually argue that Madame Web is actually one big WTF moment in itself, because so little of what it attempts goes even halfway right. But by far the strangest thing about the entire production is the embarrassingly bad dubbing applied to villain Ezekiel Sims, played by Tahar Rahim. Almost every line out of Sims' mouth has been distractingly redubbed in post-production, with the dialogue often being noticeably out of sync with his mouth movements. Elsewhere, Sims' face is regularly off-screen when she's speaking, presumably because entire swaths of what she's saying were replaced. It's such an incredibly odd gaffe for a major Hollywood movie and squanders the considerable talent of the great Tahar Rahim in the process. Quite what went on here is anyone's guess, given that nobody associated with the production has ever spoken about it. Perhaps Rahim performed the role with an accent on set which director S.J. Clarkson later decided to change, but whatever the reason, it's a technical oddity which makes Madame Web seem even more peculiar. Number 7. The Maggot Cave in Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. In Furiosa's savage third act, Furiosa, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, makes a desperate escape from villain Dementus, played by Chris Hemsworth, by cutting off her own arm and frantically driving across the desert. However, she eventually passes out from exhaustion and wakes up inside a cave where her arm stump is now being feasted upon by maggots. More to the point, Furiosa's host is a disfigured woman who is surrounded by dead bodies and seemingly using them to harvest maggots. Furiosa, like the audience, is naturally disgusted at the predicament she's found herself in and promptly makes her exit, even as the woman insists that Furiosa could find peace in her gross little maggot cave. Though Furiosa didn't nearly touch the greatness of Mad Max Fury Road, brief flourishes like this affirm George Miller's fantastic gift for evocative world building. This scene lasted barely 30 seconds, and yet it said a lot about what life is like in the wasteland. It's also one of the grossest things we've ever seen in a Mad Max movie, which is really saying something. Number 6. Jackie Goes Giant in Love Lies Bleeding. Rose Glass's fantastic neo-noir Love Lies Bleeding takes a bold left turn in its final stretch when protagonist Lou, played by Kristen Stewart, is attacked by her criminal father, Lou Sr., played by Ed Harris. But Lou is categorically rescued by her steroid-addicted bodybuilder lover Jackie, played by Katie O'Brien, whose roid abuse has caused her to grow to the size of a giant, much to the amazement of both Lou and all of us watching too. Jackie then manhandles Lou Sr. like he's an action figure, splaying him across the floor in front of his daughter, who ultimately refuses to kill him. Though Jackie returns to regular size in the very next scene, it's it's one hell of a leap for the movie to take, and one that inevitably proved divisive with audiences. Still, in a manner consistent with Glass's prior horror film St. Maud, it was just ambiguous enough to leave the audience pondering quite how literal the gigantism incident actually was. Number 5. The car crash aftermath in The First Omen. First Omen is one of the year's most pleasantly surprising films to date, and by far the most memorable sequence occurs when the pregnant newbie Margaret, played by Nell Tiger-Free, is involved in a car accident before a satanic pregnancy can be aborted. In the aftermath, Margaret jerks around in the middle of her seat, making noises not unlike those of a jackal before her womb suddenly fills up and she's taken away by those who conspired to get her pregnant. Anyone who's seen the Apple TV series Servant knows that Nell Tiger-Free is one hell of an actress, but in this utterly mesmerizing scene where the camera remains almost entirely fixed on her grueling physical performance, she outdoes herself once again. The scene is very clearly a nod to the unforgettable sequence from 1981's Possession, where protagonist Anna suffers a violent miscarriage in the subway, but it also stands on its own 2 feet as one of the most discomforting scenes from any recent horror movie. Number 4. Derek is the president's son in The Beekeeper. The Beekeeper is up there as one of the year's most pleasantly surprising movies so far. The Jason Statham starring thriller knew precisely what it was and delivered brutal thrills accordingly. But it also had a genuinely unexpected plot twist up its sleeve when it's revealed late in the movie that the tech bro villain Derek Danforth, played by Josh Hutcherson, is actually the son of Jessica Danforth, played by Gemma Redgrave, the President of the United States. This was not even remotely hinted at in the film's trailers, and so proved to be quite the stunning surprise that the detestable cokehead antagonist is a Hall of Famer nepo baby whose mother is the leader of the free world. Brilliant. In another version of this movie, that twist might have been a jumping the shark moment, but here it only made the Stath's ultra-violent right-wronging crusade that much more interesting. It also didn't hurt that Josh Hutcherson played so splendidly against type as Derek. Number 3. The male drowns in Sasquatch Sunset. If you thought that Sasquatch Sunset was gonna be nothing more than a quirky, silly indie in which Jesse Eisenbergs dress up as Sasquatches, think again. It's actually a quietly melancholic film at times, and never more than when the remaining adult male of the group, played by Eisenberg, perishes in a horrible drowning accident. The male Sasquatch is bouncing up and down on the log in a river when he slips and ends up with his feet pinned underneath said log. The other Sasquatches then attempt to shift the log, but only end up rolling it further onto his body, with it eventually submerging his head underwater. In a disturbingly prolonged sequence, we're left to watch as the Sasquatch quietly drowns, all while his pals are unable to do anything to save him. The fact that the entire scene unfolds wordlessly while set against the paradoxically serene setting of the Northern Californian wilderness only makes it that much more unnerving. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're there, drop us a like, share and subscribe too. Number 2. Yoga Girl's death in a violent nature. Bold new slasher flick In a Violent Nature is basically an art house take on a Friday the 13th movie, unfolding predominantly from the perspective of its masked killer, Johnny, played by Rye Barrett. Despite its unconventionally atmospheric approach to the familiar material though, the movie doesn't leave audiences wanting some jaw-droppingly gnarly kills, certainly one that will ensure you never think about yoga quite the same way again. Midway through the movie, Aurora heads off to perform some yoga on a tranquil cliffside, only to be set upon by Johnny. With nowhere to run, Aurora is helpless as Johnny grabs her, disembowels her with the hook from behind, and then pulls her head backwards through the hole he just created, before finally killing her off the cliff's edge. The movie as a whole is certainly an acquired taste, but this is easily one of the most creative and memorably screwed up death scenes from any movie in recent times. And number 1, Mr. Melancholy, I Saw the TV Glow. I Saw the TV Glow has enough WTF moments to fill an entire list by itself, but the best of them was that darn Mr. Melancholy scene. At the end of the second act, protagonist Owen, played by Justice Smith, watches the mysterious final episode of the young adult TV series The Pink Opaque. In the finale, protagonist Isabel, played by Eleanor Howard, and Tara, played by Lindsay Jordan, have their hearts removed by villain Mr. Melancholy, played by Emma Putnam. They're force-fed poisonous lunar juice and then come face to face with the horrifically moon-faced Mr. Melancholy himself before being buried alive. The end. You may notice that everything about this sequence is intensely unsettling. How it brilliantly nails the style of a 90s teen television, the design of Mr. Melancholy himself, and the horrific acts he inflicts upon these two young women. In a film packed with unforgettably eerie imagery, this, above all else, will fuel your darn nightmares.